So today I'm going to be looking at the impact of pressure, the pressure that I use when I'm shaping my sourdough. Now over the last few videos I've learned so much about the bulk fermentation and proving stages, and I still feel like I'm only kind of scratching the surface. And these experiments have been to improve my own baking using my everyday sourdough recipe and getting that fermentation and proving period dialed right in. It's had a dramatic impact on the quality of the crumb. It's beautifully soft and it's light and it stays moist and fresh for longer. And it's the first time my knife blade comes out absolutely clean after cutting the loaves. So today I want to look at shaping. I'm going to make a double batch of dough. I'm going to bake 2 sourdough loaves. One shaped with my normal relatively gentle approach and the other using more pressure. Into my bowl goes 548 grams of water. This is followed by 208 grams of sourdough starter at 100% hydration. And after a quick stir, I'm adding 826 grams of strong white bread flour with a protein content of 13.2%. In goes 19 grams of salt. I bring everything together with a spoon, wet my hand, and then bring the mix into a rough dough, making sure there aren't any dry spots or pockets of flour. Now my room temperature today is 19 degrees Celsius, 66 degrees Fahrenheit, and my proving chamber is set to 25 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit. The dough gets covered and it's going to sit in the chamber for 15 minutes. After the rest, I'm going to knead the dough just for a couple of minutes. I'm not trying to build any strength at this stage. My goal is just to make sure the starter is well distributed and the dough is nice and smooth. I'm using a good strong white bread flour and the dough is going to have plenty of time to build all of the strength that it needs during that 5-hour bulk fermentation. I'm going to remove 100 grams of dough to monitor the volume increase, and the main dough will get a quick shape. It's going to go back into its bowl. After covering, this will sit in the chamber with the control dough to begin the bulk fermentation. The dough will get 2 giant sets of stretching and folding. The first at 30 minutes into the bulk fermentation and the second set 1 hour into the bulk fermentation. You can already see how much strength the dough has just after 45 minutes. I love working with this specific dough. It's easily manageable and it feels really nice to work with. Now between stretches, the dough is going to sit covered back in the chamber. The dough has increased to 75% of its original volume and it's time to shape. I divided the dough into 2 dough balls 1.5 hours into the bulk fermentation. It wasn't strictly necessary for this experiment, but it has become a bit of a habit over the last 3 weeks through the experiments in the other videos. So this first shape is how I would normally handle the dough at a 75% increase in volume for this specific recipe. The dough is well inflated, but it still feels strong. It hasn't relaxed or started to sag, and it's easy to shape firmly without degassing. The dough gets a quick bath in rice flour before being transferred seam side up into the basket. Now I'm going to be a bit firmer with the second piece of dough, intentionally pushing it with my fingers, I guess. Evenly compressing the dough would be the easiest way to explain it. I'm not battering it to pieces, but I am being deliberately firm while still trying to produce the best loaf I can. And to be fair, this dough still feels really nice and it certainly retains its volume. Same process for this dough, a quick bath in rice flour and it lays in the basket seam side up. So here it's easy to see the difference in volume between these 2 doughs, and we will see what the outcome is very soon. They're both going to get covered, they're going to go back into the chamber for a 2-hour prove in the basket before being retarded in the fridge for 18 hours. So it's the next day and I've placed my baking stone in the oven and it's been preheated to 220 degrees Celsius or 430 degrees Fahrenheit. It's been set to bake mode. The loaves will bake one at a time for 20 minutes covered and 25 minutes uncovered, and I'll make sure that stone is back up to temperature between the 2 bakes. Now I can definitely see a difference between these 2 doughs. The one that was compressed during shaping, it's got a dome top and it looks like it's got a bit more volume. The other looks flat and kind of out of energy. So let's take a guess right now. What do you think will happen? What result do you think I'll get after baking? So first I'll bake the dough, which I shaped with my normal kind of gentle approach, and the other will sit in the fridge covered. Now this one bulges outwards as it hits the peel and the top slightly domes in after scoring. And the second, well, the second dough still bellies outwards as it sits on the peel, but I'm not quite sure that the top caves in as much. So let's have a little looky at these loaves. So the first loaf out of the oven is the one that was shaped gently, and the second one is the one that I applied more pressure to. Well, I know which one I prefer at this stage, but what springs to mind about the crumb when you look at these? Do you think that one of them's kind of got a telltale sign? So this is the loaf that I shaped with my normal routine, I guess. I'm really pleased with the shape, although I'm still not 100% with the way the dough opens up during baking, but the crust and the colour are spot on. But my aim is to try to keep a pretty regular crumb and avoid any big tunnels or craters. And to be fair, I'm quite happy with this. Apart from that one pocket on the side, the crumb suits me really well. Now this is the second loaf. It looks pretty good. I didn't get an even spring, but there is a slight bulge at the top of this loaf. Did you spot that before? Now I used to get a lot of these in my loaves, and here you can see why. I've got this open pocket at the top of the crumb where the loaf has bloomed open. Now I was thinking that applying more pressure during the shaping would even out the dough, leaving it to prove in a more organised manner, producing a more organised crumb. But to be fair, I'm happy with both of these loaves and they both taste absolutely fantastic. But certainly for this specific dough, I know which method I prefer, but I urge you to test it yourself. See what works for you, see what works for your baking. Now I'm still working on perfecting this specific loaf, and very soon I'm going to be comparing the scoring processes to see if I can finally get that opening that I'm looking for while still retaining a really good ear. Let me know what's been going on with your baking. What have you been experimenting with? A huge thank you for watching. I'll see you again very soon. Stay tuned.